Your trauma started before you were born. Your first child's father, you broke up months after the baby your son would have been born. You now go on to your daughter's father.
Mm-hmm.
During an argument, he said, let's just get married. Let's get it over and done with." It wasn't a romantic proposal to begin with.
Oh no.
So now you're living the life, you're building life with each other. You've got the house, you've got the big house on the hill, you've got the hype vehicles, you have the company. You're living, yeah, live the young girl dream.
Yep.
Let's say that. Yeah, live the young girl dream, right? Then you now find yourself working from morning to night just to be outside of this so-called comfort home that people think you have,
That I was very envied for.
that you were envied for. You now find yourself continuously just working and working and working so that you could be outside of this bubble that people thought you were in.
Yep.
Okay, so you've now gone through therapy. You wanted to go through therapy as a couple, but he refused. You wanted him to go through therapy, get to the point that you're at in your healing journey, but he refused.
Yep.
Okay, so you move on from that. You've now decided that, okay, I found myself. So you know what? I'm gonna start taking a few trips. I'm gonna start doing a few things for me. I'm gonna grow and I'm gonna grow. I'm gonna get to know me,
I'm gonna
basically.
go outside of what I believe I should be for somebody else.
Okay, so you start getting to know yourself,
Mhm.
right? Okay, you move from that now. You're at a point that you get stage three ulcer. You get diagnosed with stage three ulcer, right? Whilst you were supposed to be recovering, you stumble upon a conversation. You spoke to him about it. Cuss no bring good word. An argument,
Mhm.
and whilst you were sleeping, he attacks you whilst you're supposed to be recovering from stage three ulcer.
Yep.
That's correct?
Yep.
So during this time of you not being able to tend to your children, the only reason why the beating would have stopped is because an alarm went off on your phone that said it's time for you to go and get the kids from school.
Yep.
So that's the only reason why he would have stopped with the
Okay.
assault.
Yep.
Okay, so you leave from that now and you pack up your things and you decide that it's time for you to run.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the home that you want to go to would have been the same home that you would have learned abandonment in the first place.
Yep.
And if you had gone to that place, then he would have known exactly where to find you because you didn't have strong family ties to begin with.
Yes. Correct.
So now, whilst all of this is happening, a gentleman steps in your life and who has liked you from some time, and he's just about what you need in that moment because you need an escape.
Yep.
At this
Now
point,
we
you
are.
don't know. At this point, you don't know where exactly you're going to go. And during that specific moment, a friend calls you and tells you that they've just got their new place. You ask for the address and you're able to show up. So right now you have somewhat of right now you have somewhere to stay.
Yep.
And all this time persons thought you were living this dream life, this ideal life, the rich man wife, the money wife, drive the hype vehicle, but there were things going on beneath the surface that nobody could have known about, because whereas he would have spoken about it, you never actually brought it to the forefront. It's the first time you're actually bringing it to the forefront
Yep.
to
This is
speak
the
to speak
first
your
time.
truth.
This is the first time I have really spoken about it in depth. I am 36 years old. I'm a mom of two. I I I put myself as a very simple person. A lot of people say the finer things in life, are the things that make you happy, but I'm extremely simple. And I believe that the stages that I have been through in life is the reason why I am the way I am today. When my trauma started before I was born, it all started with abandonment. And a lot of people always ask me, how is it that trauma can start before you were born? And it's weird. My dad left before I was born, so I was born without a father. You know, And that right there, brings a certain form of trauma for a child. But a lot of people look at it and be like, oh, you were just a baby. Why do you need your dad? Because the bond and the love that a child that has just been born gets from both parents is different from only getting it from one. And we don't understand that. We were never taught that. We were taught to be grateful. Am I grateful? Yes. But by the time I was 2 months old, my mom left. So before I was born, by 2 months old, both parents are gone. By the grace of God, I was still blessed to have two parents in my household, which was my grandma and my grandpa. And then I was brought up hearing all kinds of stories because unfortunately and fortunately for me, I was a split image of my mom, but still had features from my dad. So in my neighborhood, I was told I would be just like my mom or I would turn out just like my dad. So I grew up with the stigma of not knowing who I was. That's the first thing, because I was brought up by grandma and grandpa and I don't know the characteristics of my parents, but yet I'm being told about who I'm going to be before I could even choose who I wanted to be. So with all that trauma, abandonment that's what we call it, it it had it had a toll on me for years that I did not understand. And a lot of people suppress trauma. When you're a child and you go through so many hurt and pain in life, or you see a lot go on around you, we have this nice little dark hole that we call our subconscious, that we just tuck things away in, and we don't remember it because, hey, what we don't know don't hurt us, right? And a lot of people, when I tell people all the time that my grandma taught me how to be a slave and my grandfather taught me how to be a free woman. My grandma was a black woman and my grandfather was Irish. So my grandmother taught me how to wash, cook, clean, cater to your man, shut up when he speaks, don't talk back. If he cheats, just be a good wife. If he does this, just be a good wife. While my grandpa taught me you can do anything you want to do in this world. You can be whatever you want to be. You can achieve greatness. Don't let nobody treat you unfairly. Even though he treated my grandmother unfairly every single day, he beat her, cheated on her, did everything that he told me never to take from anyone. And growing up, I didn't see how unfair it was until I got older. And grandma gone, grandpa gone, and I had to live with my mom at the age of 13. First met my mom in real life, like knowing that, okay, she's a real person. She lived 2 hours away from me. I grew up in Sav, for Jamaicans who are in here, and my mom lived in Montego Bay all my life. So imagine coming to the understanding that your mom was in reach of you all this time, but she chose not to take you, and she had a whole child. And it was like, so what about me? What about my sister? Like, did you forget about us? Like, if my grandmother did not have to leave, would you even take us? You get, like, so many questions used to go through my mind. Me into someone that was so rebellious. As a 14-year-old, I was extremely rebellious. I used to do things to my mom just because I felt like doing it. I was like, you didn't deserve my love. You don't deserve whatever it is that I have to offer. I don't see what on this earth you could tell me that you deserve from me, because you left me. By the time I was 13 going on to 14, my mom had a hair salon that I now had to work in to feed myself. I don't eat meat. And she would say, oh, your chest is too high. I can't feed you. And to my reconciliation, eating vegetables was way cheaper than eating meat. you know, um, I remember I went to Manning's all the way in Sav, and I was living in Montego Bay. I had to come home, work in the shop, do my homework, keep straight A's through high school, go home like 10, 11 o'clock in the night, and still wake up by 4 o'clock because I had to take a whole 2 hour drive to school. Wake up, go to school, and do that all over again. Weekends, I never had weekends. I never had the playtime that a lot of kids would have. My life was so structured in, I would see my sisters go out and play, and I would be stuck working. And I don't get paid. It's not like, oh, I'm working and I have a pay that comes in every week. I don't. My pay is what I eat and how I go to school. I had my first real relationship with my son's father. And I was so locked in that the first time I got the chance to go out, it was like, I'm done with high school at 16. Okay, I'm a free girl now. I can go do whatever I want to do. Bam, I got pregnant. And then I was told it's either if you keep it, you gotta go. If you don't keep it, you can stay. At the age of 13, I was diagnosed with a heart issue. And the doctors told me that it's like an 85-15 to the point that you might not have kids. And even if you get pregnant, you will lose it. So, to me, that was a blessing. I'm like, yeah, I'm pregnant. I'm gonna have a baby. I was 16. I didn't care. Like, I was turning 17. I don't have high school no more. I'm out of high school. I don't have no plans. The only thing my plan is to go to my mom's shop and work. That's my only plan. So why can't I have a child? I remember when I told my mom that I'm keeping my child, she packed my things and life journey started there. At the age of 16, I had to move in with my son's father. I will not say it was a bad thing because I was not treated unfairly being there with him. It so happened that when our son was born, a few months later, we broke up, and then I became a single mom with a child. When my son turned 1, I met my daughter's father. Sasha-lee knows who he is too. So meeting him, it was like a Prince Charming coming in. Woohoo! I met this man.
Before we go there, with your first child's father, do you think the trauma that you would have walked into the relationship, do you think that contributed to the relationship ending abruptly?
It did. It was a contribution. We both had trauma from our parents and everything else that was happening in the world. And he got an opportunity. He saw how his opportunity could get him in America, and I had nothing to offer him. And now we're best friends. Like, I will not lie. Like, we talk to each other in we have a great relationship.
You and your son's father, you separated, and then you met your other partner who would have been the person that I know. So now you're coming from a place of trauma. You're
Trauma,
coming from a place.
part-time type of trauma. So that's 3 trauma right there that I had no time to deal with. Trauma from my childhood, from my parents leaving me. The second trauma was, sorry, being around my mom and the state that I was in. And the third trauma was now I'm a single mom out here in the world. So when I met my daughter's father, I was 18. He's twice my age. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
He's twice my age. But I didn't see age as this problematic thing. Back home it was, you see somebody, you like them, you of age, it ain't no big deal. And at the time when he came, I was in a place where I just wanted someone to see me. And I wanted to get out of where I was so desperately that I covered my eyes and I looked past everything, and I said, I see where something great can come out of this. I wasn't looking at the fact that he was a cheater. I'm like, weigh the options. At this point in time, who am I really gonna find who's not a cheater. Maybe time that's spent together, the more we grow together, things will be different, you know?
Yeah.
So I met him through work because I had started my own company back home, back in Montego Bay, and he had the same thing in Kingston. So I worked for him for like a year before we decided that, hey, let's take this relationship to something else because, we're spending time together, everything is good, da 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 da. All right, let's move in together. Leave Montego Bay, go to Kingston. Kingston is where everybody want to be. You're a little country girl. You going to the big Kingston, where everybody is rich and famous and all this. It was like a woohoo moment for me. So when I went there, it was a shock because visiting and living, two different things.
See me and live with me.
Two different things. Going and coming was fine, but as soon as I moved in, it was like, damn, like this is what I've been putting up with. How did I not see this?
Yeah.
But then I'm here now, so let's just make the most of it. At one point in time, I got so depressed because now I really didn't have family in the first place. Now I really don't have any family around me. I have a man who cheats with his eyes closed and his legs tied. It don't matter what you do nor how you do it. And then he was verbally abusive. And with everything that I had going on, it was like I came to multiple I don't want to be here moments. You know, I OD'd myself on pills, I and other things. I did alcohol with pills. I tried like maybe 3 to 4 times until one day I was like, okay, it ain't happening. So maybe there is something else that I need to be doing. So I started focusing on me. I didn't know what trauma was.
Right.
All I knew to do was to survive. I needed to survive at any cost. I don't care how survival comes. I don't care what it comes with. I gotta survive. So I started to work. We would go, the business started to boom. I would tell him, okay, I'll go on the road. You don't have to get managers to go on the road. I'll do this. I just started doing everything just to not be in the space where I felt like my whole life was falling apart. And we started to make plans. We made plans. Did we accomplish all those goals? Yes, we did. When we started dating 2, 3 years later, we said we're gonna start saving up to buy a house, just live a good life. We accomplished all those things. We got the big house, got the big cars, got the chance to take the trips, wear the nice clothes. But there was always sadness, walking around with this big rock on your hand and calling yourself the missus while people look down on you and call you names and you come to breaking points. I remember at one point in time when people asked me, oh my God, you're engaged. Yes, how did it go? I would just laugh it off. I didn't get the, will you marry me? I got the, we were arguing one night and I threatened to leave and he was like, let's just get married and get it over with. And I was like, I was so caught up into making our world and our kids have a home with mommy and daddy. Because by now I had my daughter. I wanted my kids to have something that I didn't have, you know? And not only my kids, but while we were together, he had a child outside that a lot of people didn't know that wasn't mine. I was pregnant and then one came and then everybody was like, damn girl, you just had them back to back. And I would just be like, yeah, might as well. I never not say no, she's not mine. because I love them both the same. The one he had outside, her mom took her and left her on my doorstep because he wasn't leaving me for her. And I had a child that wasn't mine while I was pregnant, So I understood why a lot of people thought that both kids were mine because no one knew when I got pregnant. More than likely, she got pregnant, then she just got pregnant again. I remember one day somebody was like, "You have it all. Why are you always looking like you gotta fake your smile?" And I remember I told her, I said, sometimes it's not about having it all, but just having a moment of happiness that you can remember. And I got to a point where I started to seek happiness. I started to look for something that made me feel good because I didn't know what that was.
Something more.
I was an imitation of what this man wanted all my life. I walked the way he wanted me to walk. I spoke the way he wanted me to speak. I was living in a vessel. It's like I was a genie, and whenever he rubs my bottle, I come up and I give him wishes. I had to deal with girls laughing in my face. I had to deal with all these young girls talking bad about me, laughing in my face, calling me an idiot, you know, being their manager, their boss's wife, but yet he's sleeping with them. It was like, where do I fit in? And then everybody would ask me, why did you do it? I was never taught not to do it. When I was growing up, this is what my grandmother taught me to survive in. I wasn't taught not to go out there, but then I was dwelling on one teaching and forgetting the other because my grandfather taught me not to take it. But I had to learn and I had to go through one phase before I was capable of touching the other. It came to a point where I went to counseling, and when I went to counseling, the counselor said to me, she said, I can do two types of counseling for you. I can counsel you to stay and I can counsel you to leave. And I said to her, I said, which one do you think would be best for me? She said, I'm going to counsel you. And whatever I do, you can take whatever comes out of it that makes you feel like, you know, this is what you want to do. And I remember my 4th month into going to my therapist, and I started unpacking all these things. She said, how are you still alive? And I asked her, I said, why you say that? And she said, from such a young age, you have gone through so much. How are you still alive? I said, ma'am, I can tell you the honest truth. I've tried to take myself out of this world so many times. I had to stop because it wasn't working. She said, do you go to church? I said, I used to, but I don't anymore. She said, I'm not even going to tell you to go to church, but start praying because I got to come out of just my way of being your therapist, and I got to tell you, God has something in store for you because ain't no way you're still alive. You're looking at a woman who's been raped 3 times, shot, stabbed, beaten the shit out of. I can write a book on every stage of abuse, emotional trauma. I have gone through every stage of trauma that someone can go through. And this didn't happen in my old years. All of this happened before I was 25.
Yeah.
And don't ask me how I survived it. I'm still figuring that out. But I know that the one thing that kept me going, the first thing that I had to lean on was God. That's when I started finding God. And I remember I went to my ex-husband and I said, hey, I want you to start doing counseling. He said, if we're not going together, I'm not going. I said, my counselor said, you have to go first. And then when you're at the stage that I am at, we can come together. He refused. He said, no, I ain't going to no counselor. I don't need no counselor. Da, 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 to tell me how to run my. I said, okay, no problem. So I started living life for myself. I started taking trips. I started finding me. I started figuring out, certain things that just made me want to smile freely, not because somebody else wanted a smile on my face. I was now having pure laughter, and people around me could see that. Sasha-lee was one of them. I started to come to a space where it wasn't a real big FU stage, but it kind of was. Because now it's not what you want, it's what I want.
You started
I
to
listen
step
to
into
your,
your own. You started to step into your own.
yeah. And that's how I started my catering company, because I realized that I love to cook. So I started to pull myself together to do things that made me feel like a person, not for the favor of anybody else. And then I found out that I was a big giver. People wanted to drive around the whole world, call me. Like, she was there. Like, how do you do it? I don't know. But then after a while, I realized that I really wasn't doing what I wanted to do only. I was running away from what I was facing inside my own home.
Hmm.
It was a way of not facing up to all my demons that was locked in my closet. I remember after being married for 6 years, um, whew, after being married for 6 years, one day I got sick because I was always working. There was never a day that I'm not working. I would get up, I would be at work from 6 a.m. in the morning, and I'm still working at midnight, and I get 2 hours sleep and I'm back at it again. Like, everybody would say, damn, like, don't you sleep? And I had kids, not two at the time to take care of. I had a household of four kids that had to go to school, had to wake up early in the morning, had to make them breakfast, had to pick them back up from school, had to take them home, had to make them dinner, and go back to work. That was my routine for over 12 years of being married. But one day I got sick, you know, fell down after doing meal preps for a contract that I had. And I can't forget, like, when we went to the hospital, the doctor said, ma'am, you have stage 3 ulcer. I didn't even know that ulcer had stages. I was like, what you mean stage 3 ulcer? The man said, your ulcer is so bad that the acid that's inside of you can actually kill you if you do not take care of it right now. It can give you kidney failure. And he started to talk about all the things that could happen. And I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? And he told me, he said, you have to at least come off your feet for 2 weeks. You have to do all these things and you have to follow it by the book. I know it's going to be hard because you sound like a woman who's always at it. And I'm like, yes, this is going to be extremely hard. He said, taking care of the kids is fine. Doing all of that is fine. But that staying up too late and doing all of that, you gotta take it down a little. He was like, you're too young. And I was still in my 20s. He's like, you're too young to have such a problem. These are things that we see in people who are 60. Like, for you to have this is bad. I remember when we left the hospital, when me and my ex-husband left the hospital, he was looking at me like he was mad. Like, he was huffing it. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? He was like, I thought you would.
Let me interject there. This was an event that you were working nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
This was the event that you were on your feet running the entire thing, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know the event. Go ahead.
So he was mad. He was like, I thought you was pregnant for the nigga I hear that you out there sleeping with. I'm like, what? So you're mad that what you thought I was doing, I'm not doing. So that's why, like, you should be mad that I've been working this hard and making sure that our brand will look good and being at your client's beck and call, because that was me. I was the wife that showed up anytime they needed. And they used to call on me. He used to make the proposal and go to the meetings. But when the work had to be executed, it was me running around with like a chicken without a neck. You
Mm-hmm.
know? The next day I woke up, took my kids to school, came back home. I walked upstairs. I heard him arguing on the phone. And then he called a name. And I was so pissed. Like for the first time, I walked up and I'm like, I am sick, nearly dying. And you're on the phone with some little hookup girl, arguing with her, not downstairs making me some breakfast or something. Like the doctor told you that I need to be taken care of because I take care of everybody else. And I said some nasty things. Yes, I did. And I went back downstairs because we had a bedroom downstairs. And I went downstairs and I laid down. And I can't tell you how much time it was, Sasha-lee, but all I know that in the middle of my sleep, I thought I was sleeping. I felt myself elevating from the bed and I was thrown into the wall. And I opened my eyes and I was like, what? And I was being beaten on. I don't even think I can remember for how long. But I remember at one point in time, I got a hit to the stomach and I passed out. And when I came back to, I was like, God, if this how you had me plan to leave, well, take me now, because I can't even feel the impact of those hits anymore. Like I came to a point where
You're used to
I
it.
was numb
You're
to
used to it.
the beating. And I was like, I can't do this. So I just laid there. I remember I was just laying there and I was looking at him and I was like, what did I do? What did I do? Like, what did I do? And my alarm went off because I had an alarm for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when he looked on my phone, I think he thought it was ringing, but it said, time to leave out for kids. And he walked to the door, locked me in the room with the key, picked the kids up. I heard when the kids came into the house, because my daughter has a routine. She comes in, she goes straight to the deep freeze for her popsicles. And she went into the fridge and she was like, oh, I can't touch it, Daddy. Where is Mommy? And he said to my daughter, he said, Mommy's not here right now. I couldn't scream. I was in so much pain. I could not, I couldn't move. I don't even remember when I fell asleep. I know I woke up because my stomach started to pain me so badly. I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. I couldn't stand up. So I pulled myself to the bathroom. And when I went in, I couldn't pee because I didn't want to pee. I was bleeding.
Because you had the ulcer,
I had the
you're
ulcer.
recovering, and then he
My
he
stomach,
kicks, he
yeah.
kicks and punches you, and
Mhm.
okay.
So I was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? And then I realized that it was still early. The kids were supposed to be up getting ready. I looked in the mirror because I was ready now to start beating on the door for somebody to let me out. When I looked at myself, I'm like, my kids can't see me like this.
Yeah,
If my kids see me like
it's over.
this is something that they would have to look at and remember for a long time. And I remember just sitting there and hearing my daughter say, you're not making my eggs right. That's not how mommy makes them. And my other little girl saying, I don't get that in the mornings. We don't want that.
Yeah.
And he was like, leave it alone, eat the food and let's go. And I was just sitting in the room and I was like, should I go or should I stay? Or it was like, and I said, you know what, let me stay. And it came to a point where they left out of the house and I I literally sat down and I said, God, give me the strength. I just want to go upstairs, pack a bag,
Yeah.
and leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. I went upstairs, I packed a bag, I threw it over the balcony, I jumped into my car, and I started to drive. I stopped about 10 times, and I'm like, where am I going? I don't know where I'm going. Like, what, where am I? Okay, you know what? Okay, and I stopped again, and I'm like, I need to go back. My kids are there. And then I'm like, your kids are there, but are you in any shape or form to be a
Take
mom
to
now?
provide for them.
I can't do anything. I have nothing. Because what a lot of people, and when I got away from it, I realized I had nothing in my name. Like, I had no bank accounts that was separated from his in my name. Even though I was working and I had my own money that was coming in. And a lot of people weren't told these parts of the story. I had my own money coming in separate from our company. I had my own catering company that was pulling in. All that money I had coming in went straight to their accounts just the same. I wasn't I wasn't the one who was getting the money to pay you guys. That money went. He was like, it's one umbrella, you know, and you have the card anyways. That's our card, and I put money on it. But then whenever the money goes there, I'm still told the money is only for the house. So it was never a place where I had money for myself. I had this guy that, when I started doing counseling, he was doing counseling too, and he was always trying to get with me. And I'm like, you know what? Let's tango now. I'm tired of this.
We're gonna try a thing.
I'm like, listen,
We're gonna
hey,
try a thing. We're gonna try a thing.
I'm like, you got what I need. I got something you want.
We're gonna try a thing.
And it's so crazy how everything happened right in that time frame of me saying, let me try something. Before anything could start, I was beaten, knocked out, run away. So I ended up going to Montego Bay where my mom is. And I remember when I went to my mom, I was like, she was like, come to the house, da 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 da. And I was like, yeah, I'ma come. But then I sat down and I'm like, you're stupid. That's the first place he gonna look for you. And I called my best friend and I said, no, I called her like 10 times and I couldn't get her. When I couldn't get her, I was gonna go back to where I grew up, which was in Sav. I was on my way to Sav when she called me and she was like, girl, I'm moving into my new apartment. The signal is bad. Where are you? And I said to her, burst out crying and I said, send me your address. And she was like, what's wrong? I said, just send me your address.
Just
And I
send
remember
it first, yes.
when I went to her house and she saw me, I mean, I'm in pain and I'm crying and she crying and we both crying and falling over. And I'm like, and she was like, who did this? And I said to her, I said, who you think? And when I told her, she was like, I told you this was gonna happen
Hmm.
because all the things that was happening between us that I was keeping inside the home and I wasn't saying it to nobody. And I kept a lot inside the home that I didn't tell anybody. I remember when my father found out what he did because I didn't tell my father or anybody else what was going on in my house. Nobody believed me. Everybody was like, "Oh, you was doing shit too. You was doing this too. You was doing that. That's what he know you was doing." Da 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 da. I'm like, I'm not a saint, but half of those shit I never did. A lot of rumors went around. Some of the rumors that went around was that I robbed him and ran away with a man and his money.
Yes.
That
I
was the
heard that
biggest
rumor
one.
too. I heard that rumor too.
That was the biggest one, that I took all his money and ran away, and he's looking for me and he don't know where I am. At no point in time did he say I beat the crap out of her, left her in a room, left her to die, and that is why she left. Everybody, and then I started to be looked at as this evil mom. But a lot of people who knew me and knew what kind of mother I was started to question the whole motive. When I went to my best friend's house in Montego Bay, um, I was badly beaten. 2 days later, my whole face was like huge. My stomach looked like I was literally 9 months pregnant. It's crazy. I was going through my photos the other day and I saw all the pictures come up because my best friend had taken pictures of me because she was like, just in case. We went to the hospital and they said if they treat me, they have to call the police because this is assault and they can't treat me without me making a police report. I asked them, I said, can I refuse medical attention? They said yes. If you refuse it, we don't have to call the cops. But if we treat you, we have to call the cops. I walked out. We had a pharmacist friend, so I went home and she went to the pharmacy and she was telling our friend, his name is Jerry. She was like, hey, this is happening. She's swollen, this, that, and the third. She was diagnosed with stage 3 ulcer. She's bleeding out of her privates. Like, what can we do? He gave me some painkillers and some antibiotics, and he was like, she still has to go and get MRIs done. She has to go and figure out if she has broken bones. Because what I'm looking at right now, it looks like she has a dislocated jaw. Let me tell you, they say God shows up when he wants to and when he's ready to. As soon as my friend walked out of the pharmacy, the same guy I was telling you about stopped at her foot. And he was like, yo, what's up? She was like, nothing. He was like, man, your friend ghosts me. I guess she didn't like me in the first place. And my friend started to cry and said, you want to see my friend? And he was like, yeah, of course, I like her, da 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 da. And she said, you sure you want to see
See
her?
her?
And he was like, what you mean? Like, that girl can take all I have. Like, you know how Jamaican men are when them
Yeah, you
try,
get
when them try
everything.
get, yeah, she can't get everything I have. She take it all. Da 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 da, I want her. And my friend started to cry and she said, let me take you to her. And I remember I was laying on the bed, like my eyes was like half open, like my face was so swollen. And I felt someone lift me off, like say like someone like what the, and lift me up. And I'm like, who is this? Like I'm
Mm.
asking who it, like I can't talk properly, but I was like, who is this? And he spoke and I heard the voice and I'm like, what are you doing here?
Where do you?
Like, like how you find me? Like, and he was like, just stop talking. And he brought me to this private hospital that's in Montego Bay, called West, I think. It's in Freeport area. And over there they can treat you. They if they call the cop, it's private, so you get
Yeah, yeah,
private.
yeah.
So I was in that hospital for I think 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Um I had this brace on my face because my jaw was slightly dislocated to the left. Upon doing MRIs and CT scans, I found out that I was half deaf and half blind in my left side. I had a back problem. I had a back injury when I was growing up, but now I have two back injuries. I had one broken rib. Um, my stomach was messed up to the max. That was the main reason why I was in the hospital for that long, because of my stomach. Um, I also have a heart problem. So the doctors did not know that I was allergic to aspirin, which is a blood thinner that they normally admit. That's the first thing they're gonna administrate. So
Mm-hmm.
they gave me aspirin because I was having blood clots because of the rib problem. And now I started to have an allergic reaction. They had to do a blood transfusion on me in order to get rid of the clots. And that's when they found out I was allergic to aspirin. So that alone kind of extended my stay being in the hospital. When I came out and my best friend was like, okay, we're going to go home. This man said, nope, you got to get taken care of. So I'm taking you home with me. You're going to come stay with me and I'm going to take care of you. And this man did, he was, I was like, I always told myself, I'm like, I'm not going to get caught up into this because one of the main reasons why I never gave you no time of day was because you were closely like this man that I'm running away from.
Um,
You know, you still had your womanizing ways about you. You know, you had your money. Ooh, you had a lot of money. Did you have more money than the person I was married to? Hell yeah. Whoo, Jesus. You was good. The
get your
woman
lick back, girl. Get your
the,
lick
la-
back. Yeah.
the ladies that you had, they were perfectly taken care of, and nobody didn't have to worry about them. Everything was fine with them. I'm like, but the fact that I did not want to go back to where I was coming from, and I saw so many similarities in them, but then I'm like, most Jamaican men have these characteristics.
And
You
traits.
know, it's not easy to find, but the difference between the both was the attention, the getting to know who I was, the wanting to know the things that made me laugh, the not questioning why I want to go there or why I want to do this. It was like a breath of fresh air. I remember when I got better, he said to me, he said, you want to go on a vacation? I said, sure, but I don't know where I'm going to go. He's like, pick a place and tell me how much you need. And I left the country without nobody even knowing. I left, I came back, and I was like, I got to go home. I miss my kids. I missed my children. Sasha, I remember the first time I walked through those doors, I went back outside and I slept in my car. I couldn't go inside the house. It was it was it was like I'm feeling the pain all over again. And I remember I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna make it work, it's gonna work. I'm like, you know what? I started going back to counseling. I started doing two counseling now. I started to go to church for counseling and I was going to my regular therapist because I'm like, I need God. And I realized that every time I walk in that house, it would be just stress. So now I stopped going to the house. I started picking the kids up and taking them to me to Montego Bay every weekend or every other weekend. I would just pick them up and take them with me, and come back with them Monday mornings and drop them off at school. And that would just be the routine for a while until it came around to Christmas. And when it came around to Christmas, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my regular Christmas dinner that I always do, that we invite everybody and people come and eat, da 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 da. I'm like, maybe this is a time when I can reconnect. Maybe this would help me remember the good things that used to happen in our lives.
Right.
And Sasha, I remember I was up from 2 a.m. cooking. I finished cooking late. So I'm like, let me go upstairs and get myself together. Da 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 da. My little brother called. And I was on the phone with my little brother. And I was like, what you just said? And we were talking and it sounded if you don't know who I'm talking to, you might think I'm talking to somebody I'm intimate with, but it was never that. I was talking to my brother. So we were there and I'm like, I love you. And then he was saying in my ear, yeah, 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 you don't love me, I love you more. And I said, shut up, big head, I love you. You know, you mean the world to me. I was telling him, I'm like, man, you should have been here this Christmas. You know, you're missing my Christmas dinners once again. And he's like, yeah, I know you can throw it down in the kitchen, da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, I miss you. I love you. Have a Merry Christmas. And I only felt someone grab my hand
Again.
from behind and flash the phone out of my hand. And my phone went on speaker. And my brother was like, hey, hey, you there, sis? And he let me go and stepped two spaces back. And he was like, I'm sorry. I thought you was, and I'm sorry. Shanna, Sash, I peed myself. I
Mm-hmm.
was so hard. My I was wet. I was drenched in urine. My chest started to tighten up on me. I felt my heart stop beating in my chest and it started again. And I ran and I'm like, I cannot do
Do
this.
this again.
And he was like, I wasn't gonna hit you. I'm
Oh.
sorry. I'm sorry. I said, no.
Mm-mm.
I said, if I allow myself to stay with you, you're gonna kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And and no one should be blamed for it but me because I stayed. I said I can't do it. And I that's when I started to separate myself. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I remember when I came back, a lot of people was like, so did you really do it? Did you steal all his money and run away with a man? Da, da, da. And I'm like, you guys really believe that bullshit? I did that, and he took me back in his house and
Right.
still treating me like his wife. I did that. Yeah, because he loves you. He ain't like that. He's a nice man. And I said, okay, you guys can believe what you want to believe, but I know what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started to travel. That's when I started to come to the States, spend time and go back home, come here, spend time, go back home. We even stopped being intimate. So I'm like, I got you over here, you the husband, I'm your wife, but we gonna live this kind of life that I got my shit going on over here and you got your shit going on over there. And when we come into the house, we be cordial. So when you see me every 6 months or every whatever months you choose to see me, we say hi and bye and we sleep in our separate rooms. You don't touch me. Please do not touch me. I was done.
Yeah,
But
you're
I
done.
stayed because we had children and I did not want my kids to, not have I was still on that mommy and daddy whole, thing. So I realized that we started to argue now because now I'm not backing down. Now you're going to hear this mouth. Now I'm telling you what I feel like tell you. Now I'm disregarding you. Now I became an abuser. I moved from being abused, victimized, to now the abuser in my story. And this is what emotional trauma does to people. When you get to that breaking point and you don't know how to deal with your life trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you move from victim to being the one thing in your life that you hate the most. I'm going to say the devil took over. At this point in time, it was resentment, it was hate, it was everything bad. And I started to think about how I can unalive him to the point of buying what I needed to unalive him. Because I was big in the sciences going to school. I started to figure out I can put this in his food and he will go to sleep and he will never wake up and they will think that he just had a heart attack. And
So now you're in a dark place.
I remember the day that I said I'm gonna do it. And then my daughter came. My daughter came downstairs and she was like, Mommy, come here. And I'm like, what? And she pulled me upstairs and she said, sit down beside daddy. And I said, why? And I'm looking at this innocent child. She said, "Sit beside daddy, mommy, sit beside daddy." And I sat beside him and she said, "I haven't seen you hug or kiss daddy in so long. Why?" And tears went down my eyes. And that's when I knew it was over. Because when he did what he did and I ran away, he cleared out all my accounts. Every card that I had went on zero. I had no money. No money. And he told me, he said, "Come home or stay broke." And I had to leave. A lot of people are like, "You left your kids." Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Left my son, left my daughter, I left everybody in that house. Why did I do it? They had a home. I had none. They had a person who could provide. I didn't even know the first step of providing. They had somewhat of something put together. My shit was all over the place. What was I gonna do? And then my son's father called me one day and he was like, son called me and he said he wants to come to America. And I said, "Okay, give me some time." And that's when I knew I had to put my life together. What am I gonna do? And then my son started to get emotional trauma too.
Yeah.
And then I started studying about ways to help your kids through emotional trauma and all of that. And I started to, that's how I did my first course in becoming a life coach. It wasn't for me, it was to help my son. And I went from course one to course two to course three until I finished all the courses. And I started to not, because when you're becoming a life coach, they teach you to put all of the things that you're studying on yourself first. So I was my own guinea pig.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started to unpack, I locked myself in my room for a whole week. When I realized how dark I had gotten and the things that I had did, I felt like I was dirty. I felt like I had to cleanse myself. I fasted for a whole week. All I had was my Bible and a few bottles of water. I remember my son came one day and he was like, "Mommy, eat." And I'm like, "I can't. I wish you could understand why your mommy can't right now." And I did a whole week of fasting. And I prayed and I fasted and I cried and I prayed and I fasted and I cried. And I came out of it. And when I came out of it, I'm going to show you how sometimes it's when the vessel is clean that the evil spirits linger so much around you, you don't even know. I met this guy, went to this place with a friend because she was like, "Hey, I'm going to a party. You haven't been out in a while." I'm like, "You know what? Yeah." She said, "It's nothing that's big music, no reggae, or anything like that. You're going to have, it's like a dinner party." I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense." I went there and I met this guy. Tell me why the man was the same thing I just cleansed myself from.
Um. Mm.
Ooh, he came beautiful. Ooh, gave me flowers every week, took me out, made me feel special. The things that I'm asking for, I was just getting it. Like, "Thank you, thank you." And I'm like, until one day I had posted a picture and I was like, his wife. I was talking about this man, I was saying his wife, but us Jamaicans, we talk different. So a friend of mine sent me a message and he was like, "Yes, wifey." This man had my password to everything. He went in, he saw the message and he was like, "My man is calling me his, like, what?" And I'm like, "No, he's referring to the post that I made." This man destroyed my whole apartment, broke my TV, everything. And I'm like, the next thing you're going to break is me. You got to leave.
Gotta leave.
And I gave myself peace for a while. I'm like, this is it. No more.
No more.
Time men come here, and if they speak about what I just spoke about, they will be called a simp, they will be called weak, they will be called so many things in the book.
Yes, the leading cause of death for men under 50 is suicide, and that's because men don't have anyone to speak to. They don't get a chance to unpack their traumas. If a man ever come out in traumatized, you see, we'll call
And
him
most
every
of
name
that
in
is
our
from
book.
emotions. It's
We'll
it's
call
backed
him
up emotions.
we call him every name in our book. We tell him say my sissy. We tell him
Yep.
say my soft swoop. We tell him
Mm-hmm.
say woman are gonna use things and beat him.
Beating. Yep.
Understand? And the leading cause of death for men under 50 years of age is suicide.
Yep. Yep. Every single day I get up, I remind myself of how blessed I am. I remind myself about all my emotional traumas because there are more traumas. There are physical, there is emotion, there's verbal. There is so much packed into me that even last year, my relationship was going through turmoil because I had all the things that was packed into my subconscious just unpacking on me. And I'm like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. It's like my whole world was falling apart. And imagine being with someone and you cannot relate to them what's happening
Man.
because you don't know. Because this is far from emotions now. Emotions I can talk about, but this is something that was eating me from the inside out that I went back to my dark place. I had to come to terms that it's either I deal with it or it's going to deal with me. It's one of the two, but we can't dwell in the same place.
Guys, welcome to our safe space. This is a safe space where anyone can come and speak and know that it's a safe space away from judgment. Know that you've unpacked that. You said you've been stabbed, you said you've been shot, you've been beaten, you've been verbally abused, you've been physically abused, right? You've done counseling, you've done soul searching, you've gone to a place where you've had fasting, deep fasting. Know that you're at a place of your journey where you're to really debunk and unpack and, heal. How are you doing now? And what would you say to a woman? What would you say to the young version? What would you say to your younger self?
I would tell myself that, hey, the road ahead, it ain't going to be easy, but you're going to come out on top. You got this. Don't give up. You're going to have a lot of moments that you're going to feel like there's no way out and that you're going to be shattered to pieces. You are going to be eaten from the inside out. But the one thing I can tell you is you are going to become something great in life. There is no limit to what you can achieve in life. The limit is you. The limit is you. You are what you want to become. And what you want to become is you. So you can sit down and be like, I ain't gonna be nothing. That means you really plan on not being anything. At 36 years old, I I am now pursuing all the things, all the dreams and aspirations that I had before. I'm going back to school. I have two registered companies. I'm a life coach. I have a nonprofit organization that I'm working on. It's not big yet, but I am making it into what I want. I am making it for people like me,
Yeah.
for kids who have gone through the things that I have gone through and they have nobody to tell them that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to not be okay sometimes. It's okay to cry. It is okay to feel all these emotions because something transpired in your life to bring you to this point. But just know that whatever happened was for you to be stronger, not weaker. It wasn't made to bury you, it was made to bring you to life. It's